When we think of World War II armored warfare, Nazi tanks often dominate the conversation. Machines like the Panzer IV and the legendary Tiger I developed a reputation for outperforming many of their Allied counterparts. But tanks, no matter how formidable, are only as effective as the men inside them. Among those who made their mark in armored combat, few names provoke as much fascination and controversy as Michael Wittmann, the so-called Black Baron. His meteoric rise, battlefield exploits, and ultimate downfall have made him both a celebrated figure in military history and a subject of heated debate. From farm fields to the front lines. Born in 1914 to a farming family in Bavaria, Wittmann's early life was far removed from the thunder of mechanized warfare. Like many young Germans of his generation, he joined the armed forces as Europe slid toward another great conflict. Initially, he didn't find himself in a tank at all. At the outbreak of war in 1939, he was assigned to a reconnaissance unit, driving an armored car during the Polish campaign. This modest start gave him valuable frontline experience, though not yet the steel behemoths he would later command. Following Germany's rapid victories in Western Europe, Wittmann transitioned into the world of mechanized artillery. By 1941, he was placed in charge of a Sturmgeschütz III, a heavily armed assault gun, rather than a true tank. The Stu G's fixed 75mm cannon lacked a turret, but in skilled hands it was deadly. Wittmann deployed it during the invasion of Greece, earning the Iron Cross Second Class for his leadership and effectiveness in combat. Operation Barbarossa. In June 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the colossal invasion of the Soviet Union. Wittmann, now part of the elite 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte, was thrown into some of the most brutal fighting of the war. Attached to Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt's Army Group South, Wittmann's unit spearheaded assaults against Soviet armor. Despite being wounded, Wittmann's reputation began to grow. In one encounter, he reportedly destroyed 6 Soviet tanks single-handedly. Within months, his kill count soared, credited with knocking out 66 enemy tanks. Such feats did not go unnoticed, and soon after he returned to Germany for more advanced training, receiving a promotion to lieutenant. The Tiger arrives. By 1942, Wittmann had traded in lighter vehicles for something far more formidable: the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger I. Armed with the infamous 88mm KWK-36 gun, and then protected by armor up to 120mm thick, the Tiger was a technological marvel. It could shred almost any Allied tank at ranges where enemy shells simply bounced harmlessly off its armor. Wittmann's first taste of combat in his new Tiger came during Operation Citadel, the German offensive at Kursk in 1943. This battle would go down in history as the largest clash of armored forces ever fought. Wittmann's Tiger plowed through Soviet lines, destroying 13 T-34s and 2 anti-tank guns in a single day. Over the following days, his tally grew further, including light tanks, artillery, and even surviving a collision with a flaming Soviet vehicle. Though the German offensive failed, Wittmann's personal legend only grew stronger, building a fearsome reputation. Through late 1943 and into 1944, Wittmann's exploits multiplied. His battlefield acumen and the Tiger's near invincibility made for a devastating combination. By January 1944, he was credited with more than 80 confirmed kills, tanks, artillery pieces, and other vehicles. By the month's end, the number climbed to over 117. For these achievements, he received the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, one of Nazi Germany's highest awards for valor. Wittmann was no longer just a skilled commander, he was a propaganda tool. Nazi Germany touted him as an invincible warrior, a tank ace, whose kill counts rivaled those of famous fighter pilots. His face appeared in newspapers and newsreels, an icon of German armored supremacy. Normandy, the ambush at Villers-Bocage. Wittmann's most famous action, and the one that cemented his place in military lore, came not on the Eastern Front, but in France. After D-Day in June 1944, Allied forces pushed inland from the Normandy beaches. Wittmann and his unit, equipped with a handful of Tiger tanks, were dispatched to slow the advance. On June 13, 1944, near the town of Villers-Bocage, Wittmann faced an advancing British column of the 4th County of London Yeomanry. The British had nearly 60 tanks and supporting vehicles, while Wittmann had just 5 tanks at his disposal, including his own Tiger. Outnumbered more than 10 to 1, many commanders might have withdrawn. Wittmann, however, saw an opportunity. Using the cover of Normandy's dense hedgerows, he maneuvered into the rear of the British formation. At 9 a.m., he struck. Within minutes, British tanks erupted in flames, as his Tiger's 88mm cannon picked them off one by one. Cromwell tanks, a Firefly, half-tracks, and gun carriers all fell victim. British return fire clanged harmlessly off the Tiger's armor. By the end of the engagement, barely 15 minutes long, Wittmann's crew had destroyed up to 14 tanks, 15 transport vehicles, and 2 anti-tank guns. Though eventually disabled by an anti-tank gun, Wittmann's rampage at Villers-Bocage became legendary. He was promoted to captain and awarded the oak leaves and swords to his Knight's Cross. The episode was hailed by German propaganda as a heroic last stand, though some historians argue it was recklessness disguised as brilliance. The final battle. For the next 2 months, Wittmann continued to fight against the advancing Allies, but the Tiger's aura of invincibility was beginning to fade. Newer Allied tanks like the Sherman Firefly, armed with the 17-pounder gun, could finally pierce its thick armor. On August 8, 1944, Wittmann led a counterattack near Saint-Aignan-de-Cramesnil, south of Caen. The battle quickly turned disastrous. Allied forces, including Canadian and British units, had set up an ambush. Wittmann's Tiger was struck by a powerful round. Accounts vary whether it came from a Firefly, a Sherman, or even an airstrike. The tank's ammunition ignited, blowing the turret completely off. Wittmann and his crew were killed instantly. For decades, the exact details of his death were disputed. His remains, buried in a communal grave, were only positively identified in 1983. Today, Wittmann rests in the German war cemetery at La Combe in Normandy. Legend, propaganda, and debate. Wittmann's battlefield record is staggering. Around 138 enemy tanks and 132 artillery pieces destroyed, if contemporary accounts are to be believed. This makes him one of the deadliest tank commanders in history. But how much of that record is fact, and how much was inflated by Nazi propaganda, remains a matter of debate. Some argue that Wittmann's skill has been overstated. After all, he fought much of his career in the Tiger I, a machine nearly impervious to the weapons of its day. Others point to his tactics, like charging headlong into enemy formations without support, as reckless rather than brilliant. His victory at Villers-Bocage, for instance, ended with his tank disabled and him unable to finish the battle. There's also the matter of his crew. Tanks are not solo weapons. Wittmann relied heavily on his gunner, Balthasar Voll, whose uncanny accuracy was said to rival that of a sniper. Hitting moving targets on the battlefield without modern stabilizers was no small feat, and Voll's skill contributed enormously to Wittmann's success. Legacy of the Black Baron. Nearly 80 years after his death, Michael Wittmann remains one of the most famous tank aces in history. His story is told in military history books, documentaries, and wargaming circles. To some, he embodies the terrifying efficiency of Nazi armored warfare. To others, his reputation is inflated, his victories less about personal genius, and more about being in the right machine at the right time. What cannot be denied is the fascination his name still provokes. His life raises uncomfortable questions about how we remember soldiers of a criminal regime. Was Wittmann simply a skilled soldier doing his duty? Or was he a reckless pawn used by propaganda to bolster the myth of Nazi invincibility? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. He was certainly talented, brave, and deadly effective in combat, but his legend is inseparable from the propaganda machine that turned him into a symbol. What endures is not only his personal story, but also the broader reminder that war heroes are often as much constructed as they are real. And that was the story of Michael Wittmann, the Black Baron. If you enjoyed this video and want more deep dives into the battles, machines, and personalities that shaped history, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.